Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson and as always I will be your host, and once again I'm joined by Scott and Joris. Scott and Joris, how are you guys doing this evening?
Hi guys, how are you? Hope you're well. Hello everyone.
All good. Although I guess this was not the best weekend to cover. It was not the most exciting weekend of them all.
No, unfortunately not. Usually we come in and I'm like, there's been no 0-0s, there's been plenty of goals, but this week with the combined double game week, we did actually have 2 0-0s and quite a lot of just 1-0s, but we'll still talk about them. We'll still get to them all. Obviously, transfer window has just shut as well, so we are in the process of planning our transfer window review. That should come around about next week at some point. We'll put that out there. So yeah, we're kind of going to, again, part the transfer talk for another week, but we promise we will get to it and we'll dive into all the juicy moves that definitely happened on transfer deadline day, because there was actually quite a bit of movement between Belgian clubs and from Belgian clubs to different sides around Europe. So yeah, definitely a lot to get into. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we did have a midweek round of fixtures, so I'll just quickly go through the results there. It was basically a load of draws. Antwerp drew 1-1 with St. Truden. Good result for St. Truden there. Gent drew 1-1 with Oostend. Oostend, as we said before, they're kind of improving at the moment. Charleroi drew 1-1 with Kortrijk. Zulte-Waregem drew 1-1 with Leuven. Standard got a win away to Eupen. Salang beat Beerschot in the big game, and that was a really, really big win and almost guarantees Beerschot's relegation. Anderlecht lost at home to Cercle Bruges, a fantastic Ravi Matondo goal to open the scoring there. And then the big one, the top of the table clash finished 0-0, but it's by no means a bad game. There's plenty of intrigue, plenty of kind of interest to keep you watching that. So that means coming into this week, we still kind of had a similar looking table. We kicked off on Friday with St. Truden against Charleroi. Charleroi winning that game 1-0. Beerschot and Zulte played out a 3-3 draw. Definitely some talking points in that one. Still not really enough for Beerschot, and Zulte again would have liked to have won that, having been 3-1 up. Salang and Eupen had a 0-0 draw for this weekend. Oostend continued their kind of mini revival, beating Cercle Bruges 1-0. Union won the derby. They beat Anderlecht 1-0. Gent lost at home to Antwerp 1-0. Mechelen stunned Standard in the last couple of minutes to win that one 2-1. And Club Bruges beat Kortrijk 1-0 to round off the weekend. Let's start with St. Truden against Charleroi on the Friday night. Again, not much really in this one. Finished 1-0 to Charleroi, an early goal from Anas Zaroury. Nice little header after pretty poor defending. Russo standing goalkeeper while Daniel Schmidt's away on international duty. Kind of caught in no man's land between coming and going. Didn't do either, and basically the ball just kind of floated over the top of his head. Good win for Charleroi, that's for sure. For St. Truden, they'd had that really good result in the week against Antwerp away. They actually looked quite good in that game. I thought they played quite well away from home. Charleroi, they had 2 defeats and 2 draws on the bounce, so it's nice for them to get back in with a win. Leaves them only 2 points off the top 4. And Scott, I'll come to you first. Given that they've lost Jamar Nicholson, they've got Bayo in to replace him as a striker, not quite the same profile of striker in this league. You got to be impressed with the job that Ed Still's doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, they're sitting just outside playoff 1 at the moment. So, I think they are clearly ahead of schedule, actually, which is maybe as big a surprise to them as it is to us. I think he's doing a really good job there, Ed Still, actually. I think there's a lot of really good work that's probably not getting the credit it deserves, especially with some of their top players, if you like, leaving, which makes, making progress so much harder. It's like working with one hand behind your back. But they've done some decent business, which obviously will delve into much deeper on the transfer window review, but I think they're a side who arguably are coming out of the window better than going into it, and have kind of hang in there. Some of their key players obviously away at AFCON, and it hasn't actually hampered them too much. They're sitting very nicely. The big story to come out of this game for me was actually the St. Truden fans kind of kicking off after the game. They're really not happy at all with a number of things at the moment, and we're giving some of the coaching staff some serious stick. Some of the coaching staff went over to speak to them, and it got a little bit ugly for a little while. When you see somebody coming over and their own fans kind of treating them very much like they're the away coaching staff, and it wasn't pretty. They've done some interesting business in their own right over the last 24 hours, which we'll talk about in more detail as well on the special. It's perhaps debatable whether they're looking better or not, but Charleroi worthy of the win, and they're becoming a really decent side, actually. I think they're managing to win games and get points out of games in circumstances where normally they wouldn't. They're becoming quite resilient and adaptable, and that's a good thing for any side to be.
That's 7 wins out of 13 away games, which is the second best record of the league. Only Union has 9 away wins, so that's they are topping that classification, as they are topping almost any classification at the moment. Saruri got his first goal since August. He needed that for sure, and they need to indeed some players to step up and keep scoring. With Sint-Truiden, Pius was in the midst of the storm, I guess, with the fans as well. So let's see what comes out of that. He stayed at the club as far as I know, so yeah. At least they will have to endure. Both sides will have to endure each other.
Yeah, no, Pierce is an interesting one because I remember it was the first game of the season. He had an absolute nightmare and was taken off after 45 minutes. And I thought, that's it. That's him done at this club. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, that is just, this isn't like he's going to recover. He's come back in, and like you said, there's still there is that frustration that they're having with him. On the other side, another Nigerian defender who's actually come back, and he's looking quite impressive since coming in, is Valentina Ozambofor. I like what I've seen from him. Like, he kind of came back and due to some injuries. I think Andrea and Knezovic were injured, so he finally got his chance. He's been injured a couple of times, I think, as well, but quite a tall, quite your kind of typical Nigerian centre-back. Like, if you stereotype a Nigerian centre-back, you see they're quite tall and physical. But yeah, I've really liked the look of Ozambofor. Only 22 years old as well, on loan from Galatasaray, but he's slotted in quite nicely in there and looks quite comfortable. So yeah, I guess maybe St. Truiden are watching that and thinking, if only we'd got the Nigerian on the other side of the pitch, it'd have been a little bit better. But yeah, like you guys have said, they've made some interesting signings in both centre-back and up front. So yeah, I do reasonably like the movement that they've made. But again, we'll talk about that next week. Let's quickly move on to the next game, which was Beerschot against Zulte-Waregem. So kind of the opposite of what we've just seen, the 1-0. This one was a 6-goal thriller. Bit of more dodgy defending, but what do you expect from Zulte-Waregem? Ball falls to Apostolos Konstantopoulos in the 8th minute, and he slots it home, giving Beerschot the lead, much to the delight of many of the players and the fans for sure. However, they're pushing for that second and get caught on the break. Really, really good break away from Kutesa and Dompe, I think it was. Ends up back with Kutesa, whose finish is fantastic. Like, really, really good finish from Kutesa. They then get a penalty in the 42nd. Zeno Gano steps up. He did like a celebration if he was like the Iceman, like the coolest guy on the pitch. And he was, in that sense, like slotted that one away. And just before half-time, Dion Deneuve, I'm glad he got a start and got kind of more game time. I'm really excited to see what he can do, because when he's played, he's been quite interesting. Also, he came on, obviously, for the injured Vossen, I think it was. But he with a really, really nice finish as well. Really composed finish from him to make it 3-1. And at that point, you're thinking, well, the loss to Salang, now you're 3-1 down at home. Like, Beerschot, they're basically done. Like, there's no real kind of coming back. If they'd lost this game, that is like 100% it, really. However, Lawrence Shanklin continues some really good form that he's showing. It was kind of another kind of scrappy goal for Beerschot, that like kind of the ball just kind of fell to him and he slots it home. And then they get a 92nd minute penalty, so right at the death. And I was very surprised to see that Ilyas Sabawi was the man to step up and take it, like the youngster. You'd have thought they'd have given it to one of the other more experienced players on the pitch, but they didn't. They went with the kids, and he duly delivered and gave them a point in that game. However, Scott, it's just not enough, is it? After the Salang defeat as well, like, this was another game that you're like, the draw really wasn't an option.
No, I mean, I think they did very well, actually, to get a point out of it in the end. But having said that, I think it was partly because of who they were playing and how Zulte's defence tends to play rather than anything else. I particularly liked Zulte's first goal. The counter-attacking move that was behind that goal was just brilliant for Kutesa. I think, classic, opposition has a corner against you. you win possession from the corner, and in 3 passes, it's in the other side's net. It was just great, correct passes at the right moment, and a great finish. Zulte should have won this game. They kind of couldn't close it out, and it doesn't reflect well on them. I don't think that they didn't. They haven't had, and this is us touching on transfer window stuff again. Obviously, they've had a pretty questionable window, so they're not entirely clear of danger by any means at all yet, and that will be the biggest worry for them, because this game could really have stood them in good stead actually as far as determining that was concerned. But yeah, Beerschot is kind of shooting yourselves in the foot. I think they started reasonably well in this game, got themselves ahead, got their tails up, and then it just kind of all fell apart. And you know what it's like when things are going against you. When your heads go down, they tend to stay down. And yeah, they did well to kind of get a point out of it in the end. But yeah, there's not enough in that side at all at the moment. There really isn't.
Well, we had not that many goals this weekend. I think we had 14 goals in the weekend, and 6 of them came in this game. With something not that entirely unexpected given their history of both defenses either, and also helped with a few dodgy referee decisions, I guess. A small side thing, not very important, but I was amused with seeing Dion Coles giving the assist to Dion de Neve. Dion is not that much of a common name as far as I know, at least. So it was funny to see the two Dions. I didn't realize it until I saw it. I was like, well, okay, maybe it's worth a mention. It's not much. There's that. And in combination with this game and the next one, I'll already mentioned it, like the pitches, some of the pitches are already not looking good anymore. Well, already it is relatively far in the season now, luckily, but yeah, for many of these pitches, it looks like it's time for a new season already.
Yeah, I was going to say the Beerschot goalmouth looks worse than the pitches I played my Saturday football on. Like, it's that bad. It's just an absolute mud pit, wasn't it? But yeah, as you kind of alluded to, let's just jump to that next game because it has the implications for all the sides involved, which was Salang against Eupen, which finished 0-0. Not a lot of shots on target in this one. They only managed 7 between them. Yeah, it's just a result that doesn't really favour either side. Eupen, I'd argue, it favours less in the sense that this was a really good chance for them to kind of put a little bit of breathing distance between them and Salang in that relegation playoff place. But now they remain like 4 points ahead of Salang. So Salang on 23, Eupen on 27. Leuven are kind of sandwiched between them and Zulte at the moment, but we know that Leuven haven't played. I think they've still got at least 2 games in hand on Eupen, and they're getting those players back from the AFCON, so you'd expect them to potentially push back out of that. But again, nothing's kind of guaranteed. Zulte as well have a game in hand, so they can kind of close the gap and leapfrog Eupen if they manage to win that. Yeah, so I think Eupen really did miss a trick in this one. This was a sort of game that they really needed to go and get the result in. Fair play to Salang, they've put together a win and a draw back-to-back, so they are kind of unbeaten in 2, which was quite needed, especially in conceding 1 goal in those 2. Like, keeping the clean sheet, I think, will be really, really big for them. They'll be quite happy with that. And potentially it's a sign that the kind of new defenders that they've brought in are an improvement on what they had before. Molawage, Daniel Apare, Dabila as well coming in at centre-back. They got Cisse back. They're going to get Jallo back as well. Probably, I presume for this weekend he'll be back and fine. So they're starting to get those players back. But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys think, I guess quickly on this one, because it was a 0-0, but for Eupen, do you think it's a missed chance to kind of push on and get away from that bottom pile?
It definitely is. I think they've got now in the league, in the cup, they are still in the semi-finals, and we'll touch on that later on. But in the league, they have won only 1 game since the start of October. Let that sink in. We're the 1st of February now, and they really need just 2 or 3 wins. Actually, since then already to be safe, but they just don't happen. So, like with a draw, they don't really move up much. And if you fancy your chances against any team at the moment, it will definitely be against Beerschot and Serrain. So, yeah, that's that 1 win that they got in this whole period was also against Beerschot, not surprisingly. So they really they will need to now to get some surprise win somewhere, or just draw 6 or 7 games, I think, out of everything that's still there, to be definitely sure from at least they won't be 18th anymore, of course, but from the play down spot, that they are not safe as of yet. And Serrain, well, they probably also will feel, on the other hand, the same things. Since what I just said about Eupen, they also probably will have felt like this is a game we definitely can win, but there was just not much in it.
Yeah, I think Joris is right. I think a lot of teams are getting sucked into this now, and Serang have kind of come a little bit alive again. They look like they're capable of climbing the table a little bit, which for a while it looked like, they were not only in trouble, but there wasn't much happening to kind of give you much encouragement on any level either. But they seem to have kind of woken from their slumber somewhat, I think, and as they've done that, other sides have fallen asleep. So it's getting interesting down there. I mean, I think Oostende and Standard and St Truden just above that, I think they will probably be okay. But I think, Eupen and Leuven and Zulte are very much still in this as well, particularly when you look at the windows that they've had too, because there's nothing that's happened there that's, I think, going to dramatically help them. So it's getting really interesting down there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you kind of consider that Beerschot are basically down, it is kind of the battle for that relegation spot, the playoff spot. And if you think about kind of the investment we've spoken about, 1B a lot on this podcast, the investment that's gone in, and the teams below Westerlo in 1B have strengthened in the window as well. So like, there's some good teams down there. You don't want to be facing them in a two-legged playoff, because anything can happen, as we saw last year. Like, you thought Beveren were kind of riding into it with some sort of like momentum, but even then they came unstuck against a very good Selang side. So yeah, it gives you that second chance, I guess, getting into the playoff. But I mean, it's no guarantee that you are actually going to stay up. Let's move on to the next game. It's probably the longest we spent talking about a 0-0, actually, I think, on our podcast. Again, this was an interesting one, this Cercle Bruges against Oostende, because I feel like Cercle Bruges are kind of like the style of play that we're almost seeing for them, like this pressing and stuff, is what we saw from Oostende last year. It's kind of like two very similar-ish sides in terms of how they like to play football and how they don't need the ball all the time to be effective at what they do. And despite Cercle's really, really impressive run of form, it was actually Oostende who got the win in this one. And what a goal from Maxime Diarpino. Like, the free kick is fantastic in the 76th minute. Scott, I'm going to hand it to you, because you had this incredible stat about, I think it was about Maktar Gay that we were speaking about before the game. We were like, oh, this is like, you said the stat, and I was like, yeah, that's going to happen this game. And it obviously didn't. But you just, let people know, because it was a ridiculous stat that they kind of have with him.
Yeah, well, I think it's something like this. I think since the start of last season, Oostende have only won, I think, 28% of the games that they've played in which Maktar Gay hasn't started. But in games in which he has started, I think the figure is about 48%. So there's a massive difference, and clearly he's a really significant player in that squad. I mean, that's I don't know what that percentage equates to in terms of points over that period of time. I haven't looked at that, but either way, it's significant for two reasons. One, he's not playing, but when you look at some of the numbers, all of the numbers strongly suggest he should be playing, because not only do they win games, but they consistently seem to pick up points. And when they're in the situation they're in at the moment, I'm not sure that's a sustainable situation. So they really are, I think, going to have to look at starting him again. I think the strange thing here actually is the last couple of weeks, actually, since Blesson's left, they've actually been playing not bad at all. The performances have really been pretty decent, but obviously you can't keep relying on that. But yeah, Maktar Gay, hugely influential figure, and the numbers suggest he's even more influential than you would imagine.
But what a free kick indeed. Probably one of the best free kicks, maybe even the best one this season in the league. So definitely, if you didn't look that up, check that out. Cercle should have scored as well. I think Matondo alone went 3 times past the goalkeeper. Once he did put it in the net, but it was narrowly offside before, and the other 2 times it just didn't make it to a shot, or to a decent shot at least. So they definitely had their chances even in this game, but Ostende got away with it, and they'll be happy with that, because also for them, they still need a few wins to be really safe. But now they're also moving up a bit in the rankings. Outside of just gathering points, they move a few places, so there's more teams that have to catch them again as well. So very important win for them.
Yeah, no, definitely really, really good free kick, and End Circle's really good run that they've been going on, and they'd just beat Anderlecht during the week as well. So yeah, they've been really on fire. So Eastern will be definitely happy with that. Speaking of Anderlecht, we had our Brussels derby. We had fans back in for the Brussels derby, which was great. And it was Union, the league leaders, who managed to get the win in this one. 1-0. Kasper Nielsen in the 11th minute. Nicely worked free kick routine. I don't know why you give Kasper Nielsen any sort of space on the edge of the box. He's one of those players I definitely want to close down. Took a nice deflection, to be fair, but yeah, went past Van Kronberger, who himself had a fantastic game when it came to shot stopping in this one. There were two or three saves that he made that were just kind of outstanding. But then you still have those issues with the ball at his feet. And the way Company wants to play is that the ball is at Van Kronberger's feet. He has to be competent on the ball. And you're just nervous every time he gets it, aren't you? Like, you're just like, oh, what's going to happen here? I thought in this game, I was really, really impressed with Jean-Lazare Armani. I thought he was fantastic in the midfield for Union. His energy, his ability on the ball, he could just take some of those midfielders out of the game. I think he really, really helped them kind of win that midfield battle against two very good players in Olsen and Josh Cullen. I have to say, Anderlecht in the first half, not so good. They had a lot of the ball and they were playing, I think, Scott, you said in our WhatsApp group, some nice airy, fairy, faffy stuff around, which looks great. But when it came down to creating chances and getting a chance, they just couldn't quite get that final pass, that final ball, that final finish.
On that, though, I'll quickly jump in already. Last week you were laughing about Genk having a 0.03 XG at the break. This time Union had a 0.03 XG at the break and they were ahead.
I think that sums up the first half though, doesn't it? Anderlecht, lots of the ball. Union, not so much of it, but they're happy with what they had. And then Van Kronberger started to make those saves in the second half. He wasn't really that busy in the first half. Interesting kind of vibes, I guess you could say, coming out of Anderlecht in this game. In terms of the frustration certain players have with decisions, I guess Vincent Kompany's been making. So Josh Xerxes obviously gets substituted reasonably early into the second half, and it takes forever to get back to the bench, and doesn't really sit down, doesn't speak to anyone, doesn't get any high five. Someone offers him a high five handshake, and he just pretends he's not there. So he's clearly frustrated. And then Benito Rahman comes on, and after the game, he talks about how he's frustrated and he can't continue coming off the bench and might be looking to leave. So there's frustration amongst those players. Hoot and Rafael have had a little bit of an argument at half time. It's just a strange kind of vibe because things were going quite well there. And now you've got, funnily enough, the experienced players or the players that on loan have just come in who are frustrated. Whereas the kind of players that you want this side to build around aren't necessarily getting a look in for some of these players. Obviously, with Rafael playing, that means you're not playing Amuzu or you're not playing Aitel Haj. Mario Stoikens came on in the second half, which was nice to see him get on. But obviously, he's down the pecking order as a youngster and because of Kwame and Xerxes as well. So, yeah, frustration coming out of Anderlecht, but a massive win for Union. You could just see what it meant to Mazu and the rest of them when they got that over the line, didn't they, Joris?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it was not the best game of them in general of both teams, I guess, but they don't need that at this point, of course. Especially in these big games, they'll be happy to just grab the points. Against Club Brugge, they probably deserved more, even in the game during the week. Yeah, definitely. The relief was there, and the joy, of course, winning the Brussels derbies in one season. That's not something that happens a lot across all of history, even in their successful periods, I believe.
I think it was 1952 was the last time they kind of completed that double. Well, 51-52 season, certainly. So it's that alone as a stat's quite something.
Yeah, definitely. And Anderlecht, somehow they always seem to struggle to get out of the winter break with at least they were playing quite okay. They didn't play horrible in any of the games that they played since the winter break, but their efficiency is lacking again. Yeah, I don't know. There's it's a thing that seems to be coming back over the past few seasons, that they just don't start well after the winter break, and well, the frustrations are showing now as well. Yeah, Raman probably expected to play a bit more because Kouame was still at the Africa Cup, and in these games he didn't play much. Then he gets sacrificed against Cercle Brugge after Hoed's red card. I do get his frustration a bit, but also it's not smart, of course, on how you handle that frustration. It's normal to have it, but how you handle it is something else. I guess some discussions when things are not going great that might happen, then that doesn't necessarily is something that's going to stick long, I guess, once the results start flowing their way again. But that definitely needs to start going again. They were last week still one of the teams in the best forms of all the whole league. Now they added two losses, which they probably did not calculate. We'll see how that develops now, but I guess it will go away over time once the results get better.
It's interesting that kind of Ben was mentioning, just some of the stroppiness with some of the players' behaviour, actually, because this, I think, comes back to, what Ben was referencing about me saying that their performance was just a wee bit frilly, there was lots of nice one-touch stuff, and Anderlecht do play good football, but there was nothing penetrative or meaningful really going on, and there was a lack of ideas, and some of the body language was just kind of a wee bit too casual for me at times. It's almost as if they were kind of expecting things to sort of happen for them, and they never really troubled Union at all. And you would think for a game that was as big as that, both in terms of the rivalry aspect of it, but also needing the points, Anderlecht needing the points, I think it was just all a bit disappointing and a bit lame. And Company had his grumpy dad look on. He was sat on a chair actually beside the dugout, a bit like your dad sitting at the beach in a bad mood with a newspaper over his face. It was like he just knew. You could tell by his body language that it wasn't happening for them for that day. And Union actually, they did their thing very, very well. Didn't have to deviate from their game plan because Anderlecht didn't offer enough to really challenge them. Union march on as they do week on week at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was nice to have the fans back for that one. I think it was really, really important for them to be kind of in the stadium to give that one a bit of atmosphere, that's for sure. So now let's move on from the Brussels derby to the next game that took place, which was Gent against Antwerp. Not the most engaging of games, I guess you could say. Gent dominated in terms of possession, but just couldn't find the back of the net. They had 16 shots, only 4 of which were on target. I mean, they really miss Tisu Dali, De Potre up front. They went into this one with Serbian legend Lemajic up front. And I mean, I saw Van Huysenbroek come out in the media and be like, well, if he left today, there's 15 other Belgian clubs that would be interested in him. Not sure about that one, mate. Let's be honest, but maybe they would be. I don't know, but I think they'd be a lot more interested in Tisu Dali and that. But a really, really nice finish from Al Hassan Youssef was the difference in this one. 16th minute, he gets a goal and assist from Nainggolan there. I mean, again, if you look at the stats of this one, Antwerp had 37% possession, 2 shots on target, only 3 shots overall. But as they've been doing kind of all season, they're just getting the results that they need now. They're not playing pretty football despite the squad they've got, but they've got a chance midweek to move back into second place. With a win, I think they'd be only 7 points behind Union in top spot. They face Antwerp that is faced Kortrijk in kind of one of those rearranged games. Scott, I guess I'll go to you again on this one. Were Antwerp good enough for the 3 points, or were Gent just completely wasteful and lacking that upfront quality that we know is in the squad but just not present at the moment?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I thought Gent were just pretty poor on the whole. They had quite a lot of the ball, didn't really do anything with it. And, you're talking about Antwerp being not particularly kind of entertaining. The side that Brian Prisk is kind of building and putting together there has got quite a good balance to it, I think. And that's the interesting thing. It's not always as attractive to watch, and certainly Antwerp fans, I think, feel that it could be, a lot better to watch than it is a lot of the time. But it is very, very effective. You know what I mean? They handle the physical aspects of the game in Belgium very, very well, while carrying, a reasonably potent, offensive force that has been pretty successful for them on the whole, even apart from Michael Fry. Not really a great game. Antwerp, effectively defended this game out for the majority of it, and that tells you kind of, how poorly maybe they rate Gent themselves, that they felt they could do that at 1-0.
Well, defended it out. They should have just lost, because it's. I don't really buy into everything you're saying there, because Gent had like a lot of chances. I think Lemay should basically have a hat-trick as well, and he didn't get on the score sheet. So the 21st minutes of Antwerp were really good, until the 1-0, I guess. Vrij should also not be taking any penalties anymore. He's taken 5 this season. He's missed 3. Luckily, he enough for him. He was able to score the rebound on 2 of them, but that was not the case this time. But he missed more penalties than he scored this season. So that's quite a ridiculous stat, actually, for a goal scorer like him. Gent really were wasteful with their chances, indeed. Like I don't think they still believe how they did not win. And on the other hand, though, I also feel like they still could be playing on and not have scored. So with what with the players they had at the moment. So I guess in that sense, it's a bit of both. And the efficiency was definitely not there. Like indeed, because Ben mentioned 2 shots on target. Well, that is then gonna be that 1 penalty and the shots from Yusuf. So yeah, that was literally everything Antwerp did, and well, they were able to see it out in the end. Nainggolan said in his post-match interview, which lasted like 32 seconds or so, I think he said the word mentality 6 or 7 times, and Priske also repeated that. So they definitely, after that disappointing 1-1 draw where they didn't manage to defend the game, see the game out, they definitely, that will have been the code word on the training sessions afterwards, in between these 2 games.
I think it's worth mentioning as well that Gent are notoriously slow starters in games. I think they've conceded, almost a third of all of the goals they've conceded this season have come inside the opening 15 minutes of games. So although they have it within them to be able to turn games around, they have this genuinely bad habit of having to chase a lot of games. And again, here it happens, but this time they're not able to kind of have any real impact on things at all, and that's something they need to sort out. I mean, you can't develop a habit like that if actually you do aspire to push as hard as possible for a playoff 1 spot.
Yeah, no, I think the team selection's been kind of interesting as well at the moment. I mean, people asking where Gianni Bruno is, like he's on the bench for Lemay. Clearly, Heinsberg's just not a fan of Bruno at the moment. Like he's kind of chopped and changed now, but at least they did. Vadis Ojijafoy is back now from his injury. Tisu Dali's obviously back. The Pochers recovered. I think he was in the squad list but didn't actually make the final squad, so hopefully he'll be back. But it's just some strange, like Castro Montes playing in behind the striker alongside Hjulsager when you've got Bezos on the bench, who's very much a in behind the striker sort of player. Not saying Castro Montes hasn't been good, like he's grabbed a couple of goals. Like you obviously, I feel like Heisenberg wants Samwaz in the side, but he also wants Castro Montes in the side, but he also wants Nero Fortuna in the side. So you've got to kind of like fit all these wing backs into the system somewhere, and somehow Castro Montes ends up in behind the striker. An interesting position that I didn't expect him to be playing at some point in his career, but I guess that is just what it is. But yeah, I think with Antwerp as well, I look at that squad and I just feel like it should be able to score more than 1 goal in a game. I think as well, if you said to someone, oh, they're going to have the second top scorer in the league, and then they're going to add Brana Samata next to him and play up front as a 2, you'd be like, oh, well, they're going to score goals then, aren't they? Yeah, wild that Frey's missed more penalties than he scored and he still got 18 goals for the season. I mean, he's just letting Undav have it, really, isn't he? Anyway, let's move on to Standard Liège against Mechelen. Standard fans were back in the stands as well, as most fans were. Always a good atmosphere there if they're doing well. If they're not doing well, it can get a little bit toxic. But yeah, they did start quite well in this game. I thought first half they were very good. They were creating some chances. They did take the lead through Matteo Caffaro. Really, really nice finish, actually. Donham did well to set it up initially. He played it into Dragus. Dragus kind of tried a shot. It deflected out to Cafaro, who's just really nice composure to kind of, I think he hits it into the ground, but with such power that it flies into the bottom corner. It's a bit unlucky for Gaetan Kuku. Who'd actually made some really good saves in this game initially. There was a shot, I think, was it from Cafaro or Dragus, kind of on the edge of the box that looked like it was going in the top bins, and he reached around and grabbed that. A couple at his near post, really impressive. We were talking about his different style of kit that he was wearing. It was quite flashy and out there, and I think it's definitely a kit he should wear going forward because he was decent in it. Into the second half, Mechelen came back into it, and really, really nice goal. The ball through to find Rabti. I think it was from Shved. Really nice kind of killer cutter through ball into the box. There were kind of questions of offside, but he was definitely on from the kind of angles that I saw it from. Really nice finish into the bottom corner. And then Nicola Storm comes on, and yeah, again, it was a really nice pass initially from Jeffrey Heremans. I think in the build-up, it might be missed in turn because you'll see the good finish from Storm, but he keeps the ball quite well on the edge of the box before swinging it across to Storm, who we've seen him score these goals countless times now, where he kind of cuts in onto his right foot and then angles it back into the bottom left-hand corner. This happened in the 90th minute, so it's kind of inevitable that was it. Mechelen were going to grab that. And I don't know, Joris, I don't know if you saw, but Elsner's face at the end just looked like he just looked kind of shocked that this had just happened to them. That it was another defeat at home, and he just didn't look. He just looked a bit perplexed as to what had gone wrong there.
Yeah, and giving a nice impression of how a facepalm meme could look like as well. If I recall right, it was really facepalming, and sad for him, of course. Yeah, Cafaro looks like a decent signing for Standard, but they looked okay, actually. They looked better than in most games so far this season. I think they're indeed wondering how they have given this one away. Although Mechelen did turn up a bit more, we're also not that bad during the whole game or during the second half, especially. Yeah, first half they actually were quite bad, I think. But the second half game that could go both ways, and it went Mechelen's way. And of course, Storm being decisive again, he really is having an outstanding season. Cannot stress that enough, I think. And that's good 3 points for Mechelen as well. They also stay a bit in the race, at least for the playoffs. Which playoffs we'll have to see, but they are not lagging behind, so they will be fighting until the end, I think.
Yeah, I think Standard were pretty decent in the first half, as Joris was saying. They did create a good number of opportunities, more so than they've been doing for a long time in a game, and just kind of fell out of this game, to be honest. Mechelen, were better in the second half. I agree with Joris, but Standard almost didn't really compete too hard in the second half. Particularly good to see Nicola Storm back, as Joris was saying. Really good player, and we did see, as Ben was saying, an absolute textbook Storm.
Yeah, it was one of those goals where, if you just told me Nicola Storm had scored, I'd have been like, that's the goal that he would have scored. If you know what I mean, I'd have been like, yeah, it looks a bit like that. So let's move on to the final game of the weekend, which was Kortrijk against Club Brugge. And then I think we should talk a little bit more about Kortrijk, because obviously they've got this game against Antwerp tomorrow, and there's a lot of kind of stuff around that we could probably get into. They started this game really well, actually. They really took it to Club Brugge, I thought, in the first few minutes, and were unlucky not to get an early goal. It's nice they had Selemani back, who almost scored from his own half, literally. Hit the post. Mignolet absolutely nowhere for that one. Then, Club Brugge kind of built their way into the game. Slight kind of formation change. Well, not formation change, but kind of personnel change. Obviously, without Clinton Mata, you expected to maybe see some of the wingers come in, but instead, Balanta came in, much to Scott's delight, to kind of show up the midfield three, which saw kind of Matt Ritz played a little bit wider. However, it was Charles de Ketelaar and Bas Dost again who were the difference in this one. Really nice build-up play, actually, for this goal from all involved, I guess you can say, in terms of Van Aken through to Ketelaar. I don't know how you lose Bas Dost in the middle, but he had a nice, easy tap-in. But I thought Kortrijk were good value in this game. I thought they really... I think the thing you can say about Kortrijk in terms of as a team and stuff, and it kind of goes for a lot of sides in Belgium, not all, but a lot of them, they don't care who they're playing, they're going to still try and win the game. And I find that a lot with Kortrijk. I feel like they didn't care that they're playing Club Brugge. They're like, we're at home, we're going to take the game to you, we're going to try and win it, despite the players that they're missing in terms of up front and stuff. So in fairness, I have to say it's a good win for Club Brugge away at Kortrijk. Good for Bas Dost to get another goal. Obviously, they've gone out and got a couple more players in. I know Club Brugge fans aren't necessarily happy about the players that they've got in, but we'll get into that another day. Yeah, do you guys agree? Do you think actually, even though it was only 1-0, it's actually a good result for Club Brugge given how well Kortrijk have been playing against lots of teams and how difficult they are to beat?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Karim Belhacine is actually doing a really good job there. I know he's not been long back in his second spell there, but I do think he is doing a good job, and getting the best out of that squad as well. And without going into too much detail, because we will obviously do this next week in our transfer window review, I think they've done some generally very good business. I think that's going to help even more. I suppose we can't forget Fayez Selemani's almost extraordinary goal that was denied him by, maybe an inch or so from the post. Absolutely incredible. But yeah, I think a lot of positive things kind of going on at Kortrijk, and like you say, they're very good at having a go at you, and they don't really fear anybody, and they're actually quite a well-equipped side generally to compete in this league, so they're always going to have a chance against anybody, in truth.
Yeah, but despite everything that's been nice said here, I think they were never going to get anything against this Club Brugge side. I was quite impressed with Club Brugge. They really took the game in hand, despite indeed a rocky start a bit, and things could have gone differently, of course, if that shot of Selemani got in, but that would have been a lucky shot in a way, or a touch of genius is how you want to call it. But Dost indeed with a sitter that should have been in already. Vormer got a goal narrowly chopped off because of a Dost offside as well. But I really played really well in my as well. And yeah, it needs Kortrijk still. That you have to give that thing to them. They never give up, and indeed it was still only 0-1. So anything could still happen, but I never really felt like it would in this particular game. Of course, in general, indeed, I do think they are still doing a really good job. This particular game, I didn't really feel it that they could grab something out of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Schroeder would have been quite happy with the performance, and just more nice play from Charles Kesselar. Another goal for Bas Dost, so all's happy there. Let's stay on the kind of Kortrijk theme, with them going against Antwerp this week. Obviously, this is a game that was originally cancelled on the 26th of December because of, I think it was something like 9 COVID infections at Antwerp, which Kortrijk they put out a statement today being like, we obviously were more than happy to continue to play that game. It's now kind of arisen because of basically everything that's happened, that I think 14 of their 30 Kortrijk players are not available to play. The international obligation, so I presume they're talking about Trent Sainsbury, obviously away with Australia at the moment. I think they played today, which was Tuesday, so it's physically impossible for him to get back in time. Injury suspensions, and then also all the winter transfers they've brought in aren't eligible to play because the game was originally meant to be played on the 26th of December. So originally Kortrijk went to the league and were like, well, can we have these 6 winter transfers players be allowed to be eligible to play because we're missing so many players? That's obviously been denied. They then obviously asked if the game could be postponed, which has also been denied. I think it begs the question, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, about how the kind of like inconsistency of the whole thing. So I want to get your guys' like quick kind of opinion on that, but they're going into this game with 16 players, and I mean, I've looked through it and I think you can just about put together a kind of higgledy-piggledy squad there, or like a starting 11. But then 2 of those players are substitutes. So you've only got, 13 outfield players? If you take Ilic, obviously he's going to start in goal. Joris Del and Maxime de Man are going to be on the bench. So you've got 13 outfield players to choose from. Like, it's a bit farcical, isn't it? That they've been put in this situation when they do have 6 other players that could play. When we've also seen, I think Christophe de Haan came out and said, well, Richie Delat was suspended for that game, but now he's allowed to play. So I don't know what your kind of guys kind of like quick snap opinions on this. I personally think it's unfair. I think they could have been a bit flexible and been like, okay, your players, your new players can play because of this ridiculous situation. I think it's better for the league if those players are allowed to play because it makes it more of a competition. But I'm open to counterpoints and counter arguments on this.
I think you're dead right, Ben. I think, this is a mess that could so easily be avoided with a little bit of common sense. And I think the point about, the new players being ineligible, I think, while that's right, obviously on a technical level, it's just that in itself just underlines the mess around the original postponement as well. It's just crazy, and it's the Pandora's box world of Belgian football, really, where things could be so much simpler and should be simpler, but just never are.
Even if I would not necessarily allow them, although I do get your points though, but at least a postponement should be possible, especially since the original postponements at that time there wasn't a rule for COVID cases, so that they actually conceded a bit in like postponing this game. So it's just ridiculous that this game has to go on tomorrow anyway, as well. Whether what the solution might be, postponement or indeed allowing players to stay, that are brought in to play, it's all a bit weird as well, because obviously players that are sold also cannot play anymore. So it's difficult, but like this should not go on at this point in time, in my mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. Kind of had a funny image of them bringing the players back that they've just sold in January. Be like, sorry lads, you got to go and play one more game for us so we can be eligible to play this match. Like I think a postponement would have been the right thing to do, but good luck to them tomorrow. I hope that it's a good game, but I can see it being a 1-0 Antwerp, if anything. Let's move on to some other kind of news, I guess, coming out of 1A. Just can briefly touch. We see that Omar Govea is back in the fold at Zulte-Waregem. He's been back in training. He was banished to the B team. That's what the technical term, I guess, is. But he's been welcomed back into the first team to see if that he can feature with the kind of end of the season coming up. I guess looking at their own predicament, they've looked at it and thought, we could do with someone of his quality. The manager even came out and was like, well, we're paying him, so we may as well use him. Which, I mean, he said it a little bit more diplomatically than that, but that's basically what he was getting at. Do you guys think it's the right thing to do? Do you think it's kind of more a sign of desperation that they really need someone like that in there? I mean, Govea's not going to solve their defensive kind of issues, but we know that on his days he was a very, very good player for them last season.
Yeah, he's quality when he's performing, and I think it is definitely a case of all hands on the pump, because they are still in trouble and they've had a really poor window in my view. Again, we'll come back to that in more detail later on, but I think it's out of all of that this situation's kind of come about. And if I was them, I'd be doing exactly the same thing, because you cannot afford to leave a player who can be as good as he is on his day out in the cold for whatever reason. And I think it is, various behavioural reasons, that are long-standing. When, wipe the slate clean, give him another chance and try and get out of trouble. That's obviously what's going on there, and that's the only option they've got.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. I think it'd be nice to see him kind of get back into some form. We don't just have league action this week. We also have some cup action. So it's the first legs of the semi-finals. Gent with Tisu Dali. They even announced it when they announced the squad. They're like, Tisu Dali is back, just to make everyone happy. They host Club Brugge on Wednesday. And then the cup team of last year, the cup team of this year again in Eupen, they host Anderlecht on Thursday. Joris, I'll get your kind of quick prediction. How do you think the Gent club one's going to go on Wednesday?
It could be an interesting one for sure, since Club Brugge is still adapting to their new manager and new style. And of course, also it's the first game of some of the new recruits. Schroeder hinted at, I think Skof Olsen could be eligible to play already. And it's always good to see how things go. There's also still players missing. There's players back. So interesting one, definitely. But prediction-wise, I'm sure Club Brugge will want revenge for that 6-1 hammering earlier this season as well. So I do think that they will edge it already in the first leg.
No, it's definitely been an interesting one. I actually forgot about that that 6-1 drubbing. So I'm sure lots of Club Brugge fans hadn't forgotten going into this one. So yeah, that should be an intriguing one. Scott, Eupen against Anderlecht. I actually thought Eupen were really unlucky not to go further in the cup last year when they played Standard. I thought they were really good in that game. Given their kind of patchy form this year, do you give them any hope against an Anderlecht side that will probably be thinking, yeah, we could do with winning the cup this season.
Yeah, I don't see why not, because on their day Open can beat anybody. Second successive semi-final, like you were saying, which is kind of pretty good going, and quite a lot of pressure on Anderlecht now, I think, going into this. Obviously they had a really bad result in the derby against Union, but this is realistically, I think, their best chance at some silverware this season. So there's quite a bit of pressure on them to go out and do the job really professionally, I think, and get to a final and get Vincent Kompany some silverware that would take a little bit more pressure off him. It's bizarre because they've actually been playing kind of quite well, apart from the result this weekend, for kind of quite a while now. So it just shows you, actually, in Belgian football, one result at the wrong time can pile quite a lot of pressure on you at an acute moment. So it'll be really interesting to see the way this one pans out.
Yeah, no, definitely looking forward to these. And I think my kind of hope is for both of them that we go into the second legs still pretty evenly leveled, so we get a bit more drama at the back end of that. Scott, staying with you, let's just have a quick 1B chat. Just give us a little update of all the craziness that's been happening in that league this weekend.
Yeah, well, it's been quite a quiet weekend in 1B in a lot of ways. Scores round up. Lommel lost at home to Lierse. That was Lierse's first win in the league since October, actually. They've been on a bad run, which they've managed to end now. Denza won 2-1 at home against Virton, managing to turn the game round. Beveren beat table toppers Westerlo 2-1 at the Freetiel, and Molenbeek won 2-0 at home against Mouscron. So Westerlo remain top. They're still 7 points clear of Beveren, but they've got a game in hand, so they could still extend that lead, despite Beveren kind of temporarily reducing the gap a little. Molenbeek keeping the heat on Beveren, keeping things hot. They're only a point behind them now in third, so that race for that kind of second spot, that playoff position, is really starting to get kind of quite intense and interesting now. And Lommel, who we mentioned last week as being in a really difficult run of form at the moment, I think that's no wins in 11 now, and it really is, I think, going to come down to which one of those two sides, whether them or Virton, can put 2 or 3 results together, because it looked for a little while at the weekend like Virton were going to get something at Denza, but they didn't in the end. Denza managed to turn it around kind of quite late on. So there's been a lot of transfer activity in 1B as well, which we may touch on in our transfer review special, the significant stuff. But yeah, it's getting always interesting in 1B.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, kind of, you saw in the transfer window, you could tell kind of the teams that were really going for it in terms of trying to get promoted. Like Molenbeek have been very active in the transfer window. Beveren as well, we know that they've obviously, with Jordi Condom coming in, and he'll have had some players on his mind when he came in about he thinks they could recruit and bring into the club. So yeah, you can tell they're going for it. Vestler as well, they brought in some really interesting players from 1A down into their squad. And even at the bottom, like you said, with Lommel, you can see kind of the recruitment there has been to get some 1B experience into that squad as well. So I think, yeah, next week in our transfer special, I think we'll definitely have a little roundup for all the 1B fans of kind of the big transfers and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's so tight for that second spot. If Denza win their game in hand, obviously it's against Westerlo, so it's difficult, but it's then a 3-point gap between them in fourth and Beveren in second place. So yeah, we could have a 3-team race for that second spot, which will just be a little bit crazy. And like I said, they'll then, whoever does kind of cling on to that, would have battled their way into that second spot with a bit of momentum. So they'll be battle hardened come the time they have to face the 1A side, which could be quite a worry for whichever 1A side ends up dropping into that. In terms of the Pro League next week, let's have a quick look at kind of the fixtures we have coming up. Obviously, we have Kortrijk Antwerp in the 2 cup games this midweek. Friday, we have Charleroi against Selang. Should be a good one there. Kortrijk hosts St. Sluden. Standard hosts Cercle Bruges, and Oostend host Leuven. And then Saturday night, we have a big one at the top again. Antwerp host Union Saint-Gilloise. That could be massive in terms of how the title race goes. Sunday, Club Brugge may have a chance to catch up with both of those teams depending on the result. They face Gent at home again, so they get to see Gent quite a bit this week. Mechelen host Beerschot, who are massively running out of time. Anderlecht get to play Eupen again. So they get to see each other for the second time on Sunday. And then Genk will be back in action. They will host Zulte-Waregem. Next week, we also have some catch-up games a week on a Wednesday in the midweek. We have Zulte, Oostend and Leuven against Genk. So there is plenty of action going on in the Belgian Pro League and Cup this week. So yeah, you will not be spoilt for choice when it comes to matches. That probably wraps up this episode of the Belgian Football Podcast for this week. We do have an upcoming special with Alex Muzio of Union Saint-Gilloise, which I have to say is going to be very, very, very good listening, if I do say so myself. Really enjoyable chat we had with him. Definitely some interesting, his kind of approach to football and his kind of approach with Union and how Union approach things and everything like that, kind of from when they took over to the current situation that we see them in now at the top of the league, which you'll hear all about in that special episode. So we're sure you will enjoy that. Anyway, enough of my rambling. Scott, Joris, as always, thank you for joining me on this episode.
It's an absolute delight, and I'm now away to pour myself a nice cold Belgian beer.
Finally, Genk plays again this week. Hoorah. I'm so far a happy man, so we'll see you out next week, how that evolves.
Yep, you'll be back to speaking about Genk again. We had a nice week off for you this time. Great, so yeah, just the usual to wrap this one up. If you do enjoy listening to us, please do leave us a review. You can now do so on Spotify, and you can do so on lots of your other podcasting kind of listening places. You can also get in touch with us. We do love to hear from everyone. You can tweet us, it's at Belgian Podcasts. You can also find us all individually if you want to get in touch about anything we've said. I'm at BenJack94, Scott is at Scott_Coin, and Joris is at Joris_Beck. Alternatively, if you prefer, you can email us. It's belgianfootpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks once again, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.